So 10 years ago, April 2016, I bought a one-way ticket from my home in California, where I'd grown up my entire life and worked my entire life. I was 24, and I bought a one-way ticket to Krakow in Poland. And after 10 years, I've kind of become a little bit disillusioned with Eastern Europe in general, and I'm actively planning my escape. In this video, I'm gonna just kind of talk about why. Because things change in life, and the same things that you want at 24 are not the same things you want at 34. Your values change. Perhaps you have new additions to the family. And I know, like, people think it's like the dream, location independent, live where you want, and it is. But sometimes also it's when you're wired like that, nothing is perfect, and the result is that you're always kind of chasing that perfection, and you have to really just decide what matters and what doesn't, and what you can live with. This is kind of one of those, it sounds like just general life advice, right? Like, be happy, but the general life advice is kind of bullshit. Be happy where you are. Appreciate the cold, shitty winters or days like today where it's the middle of April and it's freezing cold and windy and I'm still in 4 layers. Like, appreciate those days because the summers are long and whatever else. But it's kind of like that but that, be appreciative for what you have and the opportunities that you have in your world, because there's people in Africa or wherever else that are living off of $2 a day. Like, cool, for that very moment, you're like, yeah, that's a great point. I really should be more appreciative of my life. It doesn't work long term. It never does. It never has. It's comparing yourself to how bad other people have it when they are not exactly in your purview all the time just doesn't really work. And I've even gotten desensitized to this. I was in Ukraine. I know a lot of Ukrainians who are still living through the war, and you feel bad for them and you think about it. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of move on with your life, and that effectiveness loses something over time. So what I'm saying is that while I am blessed, I also don't give a shit, right? I still want more, right? I should be very grateful for what I have, and that should be that, but that's just not the way human nature usually works. So Eastern Europe, when I came out here many, many years ago, I was 24, and I had like 2 things in life that I really wanted. It was pretty girls and cheap vodka. That was the criteria. And days like today, where it's, it's not bad, it's 50 degrees, 13, 14 Celsius for the Europeans watching this, but it's cold, it's windy. I don't really want to go ride my bike. Like, playing golf would kind of be a bit of a stretch. It looks okay, but it's not great. And so those are my 2 criteria. And then, of course, I met my now wife, and I got married, and I had a child whom I love dearly, and I got a dog. And all of a sudden, obviously, those 2 things, I don't drink anymore, so those 2 things don't matter at all anymore. Like, obviously it's nice to look at pretty women out and about on the day, but it's not the biggest priority in my life anymore. I've got 2 pretty women at home. That's all that matters. And cheap vodka, right? So now all the and I wouldn't have cared before, because today is I don't know what day of the week it is, but I would have just been hungover, right? My first week when I went to Krakow, my first month, I went out every day of the week for the first month. I think I literally went on like 22 dates in that first month. I was just drunk all the time. Like, it didn't matter what the weather was, because I was sleeping till noon anyway and just powering through the hangover. And I was basically an owl. I just would, go out at night and hunt my prey, so to speak. And that's all that mattered at that point to me. Nothing else mattered. So I thought that, long, crappy winters and everything else would be fine. And the reality is, when you end up with a young toddler who has lots of energy and you want to go out and do stuff, all of a sudden it gets a lot harder to do those, to live the life you want. Because now I'd rather be out riding a bike with her. I'd rather be playing in the sand with her. I'd rather be going on an adventure with her. We're always taking trams all over the city and kind of just finding new places. She loves riding the tram. She loves writing the number, or she loves all the numbers of it. So it's it's now different, and I'd rather do those things with her in 70-degree weather instead of 40 or 30-degree weather. So all my priorities shifted, and the score changed, right? I'm now playing a different game. So now those same things that drew me to Eastern Europe are not as strong, and that makes you question everything in your life. It makes you wonder, like, well, did I make the right choice? Like, what did I do? Why did I come out here originally? Would I rather be living in a place like Florida, which, you know, has some nice weather, obviously, hot in the summer? So that's kind of it. I'm in a nutshell. The same appeal that it had many years ago is no longer there, so therefore you become less likely to deal with all the other stuff in life. And what I mean by that is, you know, Eastern Europe, it's cold, it's gray, everyone's, you know, not quite as friendly as they would be in the States or in, you know, Western Europe. And so when you no longer have the things that appeal to you about a place, it becomes harder to put up with the crap that you thought you could at first. At first I was like, oh, people are a little unfriendly, the food can sometimes be lacking, the winters are horrible, but I can deal with it. And when I was just wanting to meet girls and drink and party, then yes, all those things could be overlooked. It didn't particularly matter how friendly or unfriendly everybody was, because I was drunk anyway. The winters didn't matter because I was just spending my days hungover and going out at night. Sure, it's cold, but you know, we have nothing else to do besides go out then. The food, doesn't matter. I'm just making stuff for myself at home anyway. It really doesn't matter. Or I'm going out just to eat myself. And all of a sudden, all that stuff, when you no longer have the core reasons, becomes a lot harder to deal with. And this is where I think a lot of expats and a lot of digital nomads start to struggle, is because nowhere is perfect. And I have a lot of friends who I've known who've moved a lot of different places, and a lot of people are kind of always just looking for the next best thing. And I think the biggest advice I can give, it doesn't matter if you're a person who is an expat or a person who lives locally, this just comes down to just general personal happiness, is figure out what those non-negotiable things are. But you also need to realize that those non-negotiables, they might change, right? Because 10 years ago, I would have said my non-negotiables are pretty girls, cheap vodka, walkable life. And now it's be outside, have good weather, and live a healthy lifestyle. I want to be 90 years old walking a golf course with 4 generations. That's actually my goal. So now those priorities have shifted. So it'd be unrealistic for me to be happy when things in my life have changed. And as you grow older, those things are going to change. There's no way around that. Trying to sit here and say, like, well, I want to live in the same place I did 10 years ago while my entire life and my goals have changed is kind of unrealistic. And maybe I'm just rationalizing my own choices at this point, but I think that a lot of people would be served, you know, what is happiness? What makes you happy? So what are the non-negotiables in your life? And as cheesy as it is, you do just kind of need to make peace with the rest of it. Because there's no other way. Like, there's no utopia. Nothing is perfect. As much as we all wish it could be, much as we wish it could change the world, I think most people, myself, I'm talking to myself here in many ways, are better served to find their own little slice of happiness, whatever it may be and wherever it may be, as opposed to constantly trying to force something that isn't there. And I think that's the big thing, is that in business, things change. You have to pivot. What works one year might fall flat the next year. Companies must evolve if they want to survive. And I try to think of my business and businesses as their own organisms with their own need to sustain themselves, right? I try to take the emotion out of it. I say, like, what is the best for the business here, not as what is best for me and my emotions. Like, what does the business need? And in many cases, it's the business needs autonomy. It needs to operate on its own without the owner or the founder being so involved directly. And I'm obviously about to pitch my, hiring company here. But what I mean is, oh God, where was I going with that? What makes you happy one time is going to change. And not serving those needs and not recognizing that you did change and that you must evolve as you evolve through life seems like a pretty surefire way to be unhappy. So that's kind of why I've gotten a little bit disillusioned with Eastern Europe. It's, you know, and at the same time, if you are not willing to make a change, then you can't complain about it, right? So I'm in the process of trying to make that change. We'll see how it goes. I should have some more details here in the coming weeks, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to change it, then you can't complain about your circumstances. And sometimes it does take some self-reflection. Sometimes, you know, these are not thoughts that you just have every day. You don't sit down and say, like, 1 decade ago, this is what I was wanting in my life, and this is what I was chasing, and this is the way that my current life may not be the best fit for that. And it's okay. It's kind of okay. It should be okay to say I've changed. My wants, my desires, my needs have changed, and therefore my environment must change as well. So anyways, as much love, and well, going back 4 years, like, Ukraine was it for me. Like, I was so happy there. My wife and I, we bought properties there, and that was where life was going to be. And obviously that all changed when stuff started falling out of the sky, and my wife was pregnant at the time, so that was not sustainable. I would not want to be raising my daughter in an active war zone, and that's one of those things that you have to make your choices. So life changes, you know, shit comes at you fast. That's probably the best way to put it. So in any case, that's why I am somewhat disillusioned with Eastern Europe. That's why I'm looking to make a change. And yeah, if you're a business owner who does want to hire someone so your business can be its own organism and function on its own, go to hire-ua.com. If you're looking for a job, become unfair.com. And I shall see ya in the next video.